AP 120, Chapter 15 topics, pancreas, liver, and gallbladder. Well, the chyme will enter and fill the duodenum, which is the first portion of the small intestine. And when this happens, secretions from the liver, the gallbladder, and the pancreas will be added to and mixed with the chyme. The pancreas, as we see here, is found in the superior left abdominal quadrant, located posterior to the stomach, so it is behind the stomach. And the pancreas has a long pancreatic duct that leads along its length to an opening leading to the duodenum. And within the pancreas are what are called pancreatic acinar cells. These cells produce what's known as the pancreatic juice. And the pancreatic juice then will emerge and enter the pancreatic duct and eventually enter the duodenum. The pancreatic juice contains bicarbonate, a neutralizing compound. So the bicarbonate in the pancreatic juice will neutralize the acidity of the gastric juice, and in the process turn off the pepsin enzyme. So get rid of that acid, neutralize it so that it doesn't damage the small intestine. It also contains a collection of enzymes that are going to break down various nutrients. So we have pancreatic amylase that breaks down carbohydrates. We have pancreatic lipase that breaks down triglycerides, nucleases for breaking down DNA and RNA, and proteases for breaking down proteins. So it turns out almost all chemical digestion occurs in the small intestine because of these and other enzymes. So, regulation of the secretions. Well, obviously, the parasympathetic division of the autonomic nervous system can stimulate secretion. We have the hormone cholecystokinin that gets released by the duodenum, and this activates the pancreas. So it stimulates the release of the digestive enzymes. And then the duodenum also secretes secretin, and secretin stimulates the release of the bicarbonate that will help to neutralize the acid in the chyme. So again, two hormones are released by the duodenum, the cholecystokinin, which stimulates the release of digestion enzymes from the pancreas, and secretin that will stimulate the release of bicarbonate by the pancreas. So acidic chyme enters the duodenum. This causes the duodenum to release the hormones secretin and cholecystokinin. They travel in the bloodstream and arrive at the pancreas, thereby stimulating the pancreas to secrete either the bicarbonate ions, secretin causes that, or the digestive enzymes by cholecystokinin. And then those pancreatic juice will then enter the duodenum. The liver. Liver, as we know, is a very large reddish-brown organ. It's located primarily in the upper right quadrant of the abdominal cavity. It's the largest internal organ. It has a large right lobe and a smaller left lobe. The liver also has important access to bloodstream. So it has the hepatic artery arriving with oxygen-rich blood. And it also has blood arriving via the hepatic portal vein, which is nutrient-rich blood. So the hepatic portal vein is coming from the small intestine, carrying the nutrients that have been absorbed by the small intestine directly to the liver. Within the liver, we have these repeating structures referred to as hepatic lobules that form these lovely hexagon structures. They have a central vein, surprise, at the center, and then along the points of the hexagon is where the blood arrives, the oxygenated blood from the hepatic artery and the nutrient-rich blood from the hepatic portal vein. They arrive, travel through the hepatic lobules, and then empty into the central vein. And then the central veins will fuse together eventually to form the hepatic vein that then empties into the inferior vena cava. So The blood from the hepatic artery and the hepatic portal vein mix together as they travel toward the central vein, and they will pass through all of these hepatocytes, all of these liver cells, and the liver cells will be pulling nutrients out of the blood that the liver is going to store. It'll also remove some any toxins, and there are also tiny little phagocytic cells found within these blood vessels that help to engulf any pathogens that may have came along the trip from the small intestine. Also associated with the liver are these tiny little caniculi that carry bile. So bile caniculi that then fuse to form bile ducts that lead to the common hepatic duct. And they are, as I said, carrying bile that the hepatic cells, the hepatocytes, have produced. And bile will then travel through the common hepatic duct into the common bile duct and eventually merge with the cystic duct coming from the gallbladder. And then that common bile duct releases the bile into the duodenum. Bile is needed to mix with the chyme coming from the stomach. So again, the various bile ducts fuse to form the common hepatic duct. And then the common hepatic duct fuses with the cystic duct from the gallbladder, forming the common bile duct that then reaches the duodenum to release the bile into the duodenum to mix with the chyme. Now, the liver is amazing, and it has a huge range of functions. For instance, it has many metabolic activities. It synthesizes various lipids, including cholesterol. It converts carbohydrates and proteins into fat, long-term energy storage. It can convert amino acids into other amino acids. It can also convert amino acids into carbohydrates and into fats. And when the liver converts amino acids, it leads to the production of urea, which goes into the bloodstream, urea being a waste that will be secreted in our urine. The liver also stores glycogen, which is the huge molecule made up of lots and lots of glucose. So the liver stores glucose in the form of glycogen. Also stores some important vitamins and minerals like vitamin A, D, B12, and iron. The liver helps to filter the blood, and so as the blood travels through the liver, through its hepatic lobules, it will remove damaged blood cells, other foreign substances, and toxins. So, for instance, one thing liver removes is alcohol, and then alcohol is processed and neutralized. The liver also produces blood plasma proteins. So, the liver produces the proteins found in blood plasma. Not all of them, but many of them. And finally, of course, the liver has a role in digestion. It produces and secretes bile. So again, that's its role in the digestive system specifically. And bile is important. Bile is a yellowish-green liquid, and it includes water, the bile, some pigments, cholesterol, and electrolytes. And the bile pigments help to come from the breakdown of hemoglobin. So bile pigments are left over from recycling hemoglobin. And also, bile excretes excess cholesterol. So too much cholesterol, some of it gets released in bile. And then the important digestive function is that the bile salts help to emulsify fats. So basically, the fats in the chyme in the food we eat all clump together into big globs, and the bile salts will break those big globs into tiny little droplets that are easier to expose to lipases, to enzymes to break down the fats, as well as to allow for absorption of the fatty acids. So basically, bile salts act like soap. The gallbladder. The gallbladder is a pear-shaped sac. It lies on the inferior surface of the liver. The gallbladder stores bile. So the main job of the gallbladder is to store bile, and in the process concentrate the bile down. So the gallbladder stores bile. It does not make bile. It only stores bile. And then when the chyme enters the duodenum, the gallbladder will contract and excrete the bile into the duodenum, bile traveling out of the gallbladder through the cystic duct and through the common bile duct to the duodenum. There is a sphincter that controls the release of fluids from the common bile duct as well as from the pancreatic duct, and it is called the hepatopancreatic sphincter. So this sphincter that controls the release of bile and pancreatic juice into the duodenum. Now, when the duodenum releases the hormone cholecystokinin, that hormone stimulates the gallbladder to contract. So again, the hormone cholecystokinin released by the duodenum when chyme enters the duodenum, that causes the gallbladder to contract and empty of bile. So here we have the duodenum. Chyme is entering the duodenum, so it releases cholecystokinin, which enters the bloodstream. Then that hormone cholecystokinin will stimulate contraction of the gallbladder to cause it to release the bile into the duodenum. And as we also know, cholecystokinin will also stimulate the pancreas and inhibit activity in the stomach. Pretty multifunctional hormone. And that is it for this part of the lecture.